Okay. Okay, so now you should be able to see my screen. We're still gonna wait a little bit. Okay, so can you see my screen? You should be able to, right? Okay, I'm sharing this screen, right? Okay. Okay, before we start, I'm gonna make a brief introduction about what is this about. This webinar, basically it's about 3D scanning for jewelry. So I'm just gonna make a quick, okay, just doing some technical checks, 1 second only. Chat. Okay, you can see everything. Okay, that's fine. Right, 3D scanning for jewelry. What's this? 3D scanning is basically a technology that allows for to basically digitalize any object and make jewelry out of it, or use it to make jewelry. Okay. I'm not gonna go into very technical terms. I want to keep it plain and simple. The idea of these webinars is that you can ask me questions, and if you have any concerns or anything that you want to know specifically, you can always contact me and I'll try to help you. Okay. About me, just this is a brief introduction about me. I don't want to be talking a lot about me. I am basically a jeweler. I've been doing CAD for 15 years or something like that. I am currently working as a CAD designer, as a jeweler, and I do my online courses as well. Right, just like a very quick explanation, what's 3D scanning, how it works, the whole technology. Just think about light. So basically, it's a projector that projects light into any surface, and then there's a software that recognizes how the light interacts with that object. And the consequences of that, it's a new geometry. So basically, a computer reads how light intersects or interacts with an object. Here's a quick video showing how it works. The video is a bit of a sales video, but it doesn't really matter. Okay. So here you see a little bit. You have like this projector, this little projector inside this box that projects the light into a surface, into an object. And then a computer kind of reads what's in there. You see this thing in red? Okay, so here's the camera and the projector. So the projector projects some blue light into this object, and the camera kind of recognizes that as well. This is probably the only 3D scanner that I would use when it comes to jewelry. You have others, like David Laser Cam, I think it's called, and there are many others. But if you want to 3D scan gemstones, for example, you really can only use this one. Okay, I'm not selling it. I'm just telling you what's up there. There are more softwares and more hardware, more machines that you could use. But in terms of resolution, you would only be able to use this when it comes to jewelry, at least. So as you can see, the bottom part keeps rotating, keeps moving, and the camera just reads the geometry. In the case that you have, let's say, a ring, you might need to scan it a couple of times. So you might need to scan the top first, then take the ring out of this clamp that it's there, out of that clasp in there, You just move it, 3D scan it again, and then you put both pieces together. So you scan one side, then another side, and then with the software that comes with the scanner, you just put both pieces together. For example, if you have a gemstone, I'm going to show it later, a little example, but you need to hold it somehow. You need to hold the gemstone from one side. I'm sorry, but I only see your computer desktop image, not the scanner that you're speaking of. Whoa. Okay, we might have a little problem here. Okay, come on. Can anyone see my screen? Okay, I'm going to start again. Just this video, okay? So this is the little 3D scanner that I was showing. Well, it's not quite little, it's quite big actually. Basically, as I was saying, there is like a little projector that it's here, and it projects the light into the object. Something that I forgot to mention before, the object needs to be around, there are limitations in terms of size. So you cannot really scan something really big or something very small. But anyway, the whole point, the way it works is that it projects light into an object. And then the software inside reads that geometry. And it generates a new object based on that. Okay. As I was saying, in case of this ring that we see here, for example, this ring, you would scan it in 2 different steps. So the first step would be 3D scan it like this. And then you see this clasp that it's here. You will need to grab the ring from the side of the shank and 3D scan it again. And then you can, on the software, once the 3D scanning is done, you would just combine 2 parts together. So you would end up with a closed geometry, like the full object. When it comes to gemstone, it's pretty much the same. You will always need to hold the gemstone from one side. So you need to hold it from one side, scan it, then hold it from another side, scan it again, and then put everything together. Right. Something quite important when it comes to 3D scanning, especially gemstones. You can see the one on the left, it looks the same as the one on the right, but it has no facets. Well, it has facets, but they are not as sharp as the one on the right. What's the difference? The one on the left, it's a 3D scan gemstone. It's a mesh. Anything that you are going to 3D scan, any software that you use, any hardware that you use for 3D scanning, you will end up with a mesh. I know it's a bit technical. I'm going to try not to talk about CAD. This is about 3D scanning. The only thing that you should be aware of is that if you have a mesh, you don't have the same, let's say, freedom in terms of modeling. For example, I'm going to make a little demo, a little modeling session later. But basically, when you create a gemstone in CAD, any software, doesn't matter, you will have a, let's say, a CAD gemstone, a gemstone that is made in a software. With a mesh, you don't. So if you, for example, want to add like 4 closed collet or like a bezel or any type of modeling tool, you cannot do it with a mesh. So you're a bit limited. But still, the main advantage is that you get an extremely accurate result. For example, this is a classic example. This is a gemstone. There is no way on earth any jeweler, doesn't matter how many experience you have, that you will be able to measure all the facets of the gemstone. So in this case, 3D scanning makes a massive difference. It's extremely helpful. Another thing, minimum darkness. With the 3D scanner that we've seen the video before, it's not a massive difference. It's not something really bad, because under normal light conditions, it would work really well. Other 3D scanning hardware, like equipment, you need to work in a dark room, actually. Like the one I mentioned before, David laser cam, you cannot have it in a normal room. You need to be in darkness. That's basically because the light could create some kind of interference with the lighting of the room. But anyway, it's not a massive problem. Something that it's quite dangerous sometimes. When we 3D scan something, as we've seen in the video before, just to avoid reflections, what you should do, you don't have to, but it helps a lot, is to apply some kind of powder coating on the gemstones or on the object that you're going to 3D scan. That's just to avoid reflections. It's completely harmless. It will not damage the stones or anything. But the problem that you might have with emeralds is that if you coat it with this powder, you will need to clean them later. And as you should know, you cannot put emeralds in the ultrasonic cleaner. Well, you could, but you're taking a huge risk. So it's basically, it's not because you cannot 3D scan it, it's because you cannot clean them properly after 3D scanner. With opals, it's not the same problem. It's just that you would need to be very careful with that. So it could create problems in some opals. But other than that, you can 3D scan pretty much everything. Something that I haven't mentioned here, I would not call it limitations, but it's something to take into consideration. This machinery, this hardware, it's quite delicate in terms of basically you cannot have it in a dirty workshop. It has to be quite clean, and yeah, you have to take care of it. Right. Practical examples of 3D scanning applications. Gemstones, as we've seen before. So we can just 3D scan a gemstone, and then we can import it into a CAD file, as we're going to see later. Matching wedding bands. Right, I will show an example for each of these options, but basically matching wedding bands, it's the case that you have a ring with a strange curvature, and your customer is asking to make a matching wedding band. You have different options. You can hand make it, or you can just take pictures and do it in CAD. But basically, if you 3D scan it, you are making an exact copy. It's gonna match perfectly well to it. I'm gonna do some Q&A questions later if you guys have any questions. But yeah, and you have some questions to. Yeah, okay. Right. As we've seen, matching wedding bands is one applications, replicating or improving existing designs. What is that means? So for example, a customer comes to you and the stones are falling off because the claws are damaged or something. And you don't have the CAD file. If you've done the CAD before, if that ring is something that you made before, you're lucky because you have the CAD file. But if you don't, you have a problem. You can take pictures and measurements. Yes, of course you can. But if you 3D scan it, you make sure that the geometry fits exactly in the same place. It works really well when you have some kind of designs that are kind of organic or with a strange curvature. You can measure straight lines quite well, but curvy objects, it's quite tricky sometimes. Insurance or valuations, of course, the same. You can make a ring, 3D scan it, and then you have a record of that. Or if a customer comes to you, you can just 3D scan it. Other objects, I'm going to be a bit mysterious here. I will show you at the end. It's not strictly jewelry, but I call it fun fact. So, okay, gemstones, as we've seen, we can just 3D scan gemstones. This is an example of how it looks in terms of CAD. So as you can see, the geometry you get, it's exactly like a gemstone, and you don't even need to set dimensions. You just 3D scan it and put it inside the software, and then you can just work with that. So it kind of helps a lot. And yeah, here's the comparison between 3D scan gemstone, CAD gemstone made in the software, and this is purely a 3D scan gemstone as well. Okay, So, okay. Matching bands, as we've seen before. I think the video is here. Okay, so you can see this is a 3D scan ring. In this case, I'm using Matrix, but it doesn't really matter which software you use, Rhino, 3D Design, whatever you want. So as you can see, I'm going to pass it a little bit. You basically import the object in the software, and just by making some lines, you make sure that it fits exactly the same. You're actually using the mesh geometry to create a new geometry. If you don't have a 3D scan file, your only option is to take pictures, which it could work, or you could make it by hand, like manually, old school, which is valid, but it depends really. Some designs it's quite more tricky. Whoa, that one. Too fast here, 1 second. Okay, I just want to show you the final design. Okay, so as you can see, it fits exactly on the ring. Yeah. So we have a mesh that is just for reference. We're not going to use this mesh for anything. And we create a new geometry that we will use. Okay. Then copy existing designs or repairs. So it could be the case that you have a ring and you need to either repair it, which means making a new model, or sometimes they want exactly the same, but something different. So this would be the case. So you can see here, I put the ring there, the mesh, and I am doing it again. So of course, the video is going really fast because this took me like 2 hours to make. So as you can see, I'm only using the CAD file as a reference. I'm never using the 3D scan object to build something. It's just like a visual reference. Of course, I'm using dimensions and all of that, and gem sizes, and there is precision. But yeah, it basically avoids having to take pictures of all the process. Yeah? So the only key thing that it's important when using 3D scanning is that the object, the 3D scan object, needs to be properly centered in the right place. When you have that, you can just replicate it. Okay. If you guys want to learn more about this, you can check my website later. I got some tutorials and courses in there. But yeah, and I think this video is also on YouTube, if I remember correctly. But yeah, okay, it's time to pull up the polls. Okay, you should have some questions to answer if you want to. You don't have to, but if you do, would be great. Okay, this is the fun fact I mentioned earlier. Right, it's not jewelry, but it's a very practical application of jewelry. Right, this was my dad's Christmas present. What I did was I 3D scanned a physical toy soldier, which is this one over here. So yeah, I put it on the scanner, on that scanner that you've seen before. And I got a 3D mesh geometry of that object. Okay, I'm going to show you all the pictures of the process. Okay, so here's the 3D scan object, yeah, of this object. As you can see, the face is from a soldier. But then on ZBrush, using another software, we basically we changed the face of the soldier to my dad's face. To be fair, I didn't do this. I got help to do this because it's quite tricky. But the whole point is that not only the face was changed, but also some parts of the body, like this vest on the chest, it was improved, it was changed. Because when you're using 3D printing, you need to take into consideration certain tolerancing and certain, let's say, technical procedures. So if you're going to use certain 3D printer or certain resin for printing, you need to be aware of certain things. It's quite technical, so I don't want to go deep into that. But the whole point is that I got a toy soldier, a 3D scanner, I changed the face, and I print it again. And I think, yeah, I also got my dad's head, basically, which is this. There should be an here, hang on. Yeah, and this is the final product, which is this one that you see on the right, but it's been painted. It's in the process, it's not finished. Okay. Okay, questions and answers. Sorry, questions, anyone? Well, this. Okay. Pause. Okay. Right, I'm gonna jump into making a bit of a, like showing how to do something in Matrix. You should be able to see my screen, right? Okay. Right. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is import the CAD file that you guys have seen before, which is this one. What's the media is used for this type of printing? That's not wax, that is a resin, and it was the Solus Pro. And I can give you the, that is Studio Joya. Studio Joya? Studio Joya? No, not Studio Joya. Just contact me privately and I'll forward you the link. It's a company next to Barcelona. It could be done in wax, yes, but for a project like this, it didn't make sense. I would use wax if I would consider casting it. Like, of course, for jewelry, you would. But this resin in particular, and this printer, that's why I use this one, it's a printer and a resin that is used to make this kind of toys, this kind of figures. So for this project, it makes sense. Under normal circumstances, I would never use it. I basically use 3D printing for printing waxes that I'm going to cast. So yeah, Solidscape, project, all of that, classical ones. I'll have another webinar soon about 3D printing. So you might want to check. I think that tomorrow you will receive a link with my other webinars, so you can just check it out. Okay, these are the 3D scan objects that we've seen in the presentation. So this is a ring. As you can see, it's a mesh. I cannot do much with this. And this is a 3D scan mesh. And this is a 3D scan mesh. Okay. Also, it makes a bit of a difference sometimes which resolution you put when 3D scanning, but it's not a big thing. Okay, so I'm just going to make a quick ring. Okay, first of all, what I've mentioned, the stone might not be in the center when you 3D scan it. So what you need to do is position it on the center. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, fine. And then, as I mentioned before, with this stone, we cannot do much at the moment because it's just a mesh. So what I'm going to do is to build a new stone that fits the same characteristics. Again, I'm using Matrix, but just ignore the fact that I'm using Matrix. You can do this with any software, well, any jewelry specific software. So now what I'm doing is just replicating the stone on top. Okay. Okay, of course, if I had the stone in front of me, I would take dimensions, but I don't have it. So it doesn't matter. It's just for you to understand a bit the process. The next step is a bit more like CAD modeling, but it doesn't matter. About 3D scanning, that's pretty much everything that you should be aware of. It's, in terms of jewelry, like gemstones, it's quite simple. Of course, they get more complex when you need to 3D scan bigger objects, but doesn't really matter. Okay, so we're talking about CAD now, CAD modeling. So I got the stone. The mesh can be hidden because I don't need to see it right now. And the main advantage of having this CAD gemstone is that I can do things like this. On the bezel. Okay, so I make the under bezel, which is going to be the whole setting pretty much. If you have any questions or something, you can ask now, or you can contact me via email later. You should receive my email later. Okay, I'm drawing now the front of the ring. I'm just pretty much improvising something. So always when making a ring, I make it 1.8 here, 1.8 here, okay? And then I'm just gonna draw the side of the ring. So I'm gonna keep it quite simple. So I'm gonna do something like this. Yeah, okay. And now using these two curves, I'm gonna build this one, okay, you see? And actually using this one and this one, create this one, okay? So using these two, I pretty much create the shank that I'm going to use. I have just downloaded just Rhino 6, but not Matrix. Will I be able to take your course without the Matrix package? Yes, of course you will. Oh, hang on. Well, if you want to contact me about courses, you can contact me later. Maybe it's better, so I can keep it. I can give you like advice on what you need. But yeah, you can do jewelry with Rhino only, even with Rhino 3. That's completely valid. Actually, for example, in my case, I know it's a bit strange, but I started with Rhino when I was very young. So although I use Matrix and I enjoy using Matrix, most of the commands that I use, they are not Matrix commands. They are mostly Rhino commands because that's how my brain works. I don't know. But yeah, of course you can. It's valid. Of course, if you have Matrix or another software, it's going to take you a bit longer, but you can do it. Okay, so I'm just going to draw the profile of the ring a little bit. One of the reasons also why I use mostly Rhino tools rather than Matrix ones, it's because I know it takes a bit longer sometimes, but you are more in control with certain things, certain tools, but that's just the way I see it. Okay, so as you can see, I have two profiles here. So now I'm gonna start creating the geometry, just like that. And now I'm gonna put it to the other side. Actually, let me do it like this. Okay, so I'm doing a sweep to rail. Those of you who are familiar with Rhino, you will see that I'm using many of the classic Rhino tools, but it doesn't really matter. It's more like whatever you prefer to use. Okay, so as you can see, I've started doing like the top of the ring, and now I'm gonna make the bottom one. So I make this. You see, in this case, some people would use profiles. it would be valid. You could use the profiles from Matrix, but I feel like I am more in control with this. Okay. So I'm gonna make it flat at the top on the inside. By the way, before I forget, this webinar will be recorded. So I'm gonna post it on my Facebook page and on my YouTube page, probably if I can. And yeah, any questions, you can just contact me that way. Okay, so now I have these two curves that I'm gonna make in red because I want this to be solid. One, two. Okay. Okay, so as you can see now, I showed the whole thing. This is the mesh. I still have it there. Okay. But now, for example, if I want to make the folklores, I cannot use the mesh directly. But if I use the gemstone from Matrix, all I need to do is F6, head builder, and it will kind of automatically create the folklores. I'm not 100% happy with this design, but the idea is that I would just show you how to use it. So it's for you to have an idea, okay? We're not done yet, but almost actually. So all I'm going to do now is cut this part. Just like that. And split this. I know it's a bit difficult to see maybe, but I just cut this part off, okay? In this case, this ring, I would make it in one part. And probably this, I would change it a little bit. Actually, I could do it now. Let's do it properly. That's a bit better. Still not perfect, but better than before. Yes, okay. Project C-plane. Actually, one of my next webinars, I think it's either Tuesday or Thursday next week. It's gonna be just Rhino 6. So you can feel free to join that if you want. Okay, so I cut this, and then another thing we could do is cut this just to finish. So I have this part, and I'm just going to make an offset of 0.9. Something to take into consideration as well when making jewelry, 3D scanning, well, CAD in general. The way I do things, it might not be valid for everyone. It doesn't mean it's wrong, it's just different, okay? Like, for example, the way I'm doing this, some people will say, oh no, it's wrong. I'll show you in a second. I'm just cutting a hole on the bezel. So I'm just doing this. Okay. The way I've done it, the top one, it's thicker than the lower one. Some people might think that this is too thin. What they do is they do the bottom one thicker than the one on the top. It's a bit of personal preference. What I would probably do different is this. I don't quite like this. I would probably make it a bit, I don't know, I would like to avoid this flat surface here. But anyway, that just to give you an idea of 3D scanning and what's possible a bit in CAD. If there are more questions, I'll be happy to help you. I think that's it. Okay. Yeah, reply to that. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions later today, you can just contact me directly and I'll try to help you. You should receive an email tomorrow with my new webinars. If you have any suggestions of something that you want me to explain, feel free to let me know. And yeah, thank you so much for attending.